Good morning. How is everybody doing today? Good, good, good. Okay, so we're talking about professors from seminary. I had a professor that would say that the holy text is like a beautiful diamond. You must turn it and turn it again in the light. And when we stop turning, it stops giving off light and insight. So today we're going to do a turning of the scripture, okay? I'm just letting you know just ahead of time, okay? All right. So a former tax collector turned disciple wrote the gospel that we are reading today. Matthew wrote the gospel during a time where his community was trying to form a new Christian identity. But this newly formed Christian community was under a lot of pressure. It had the Roman establishment on one side, it had the Jewish establishment on the other side, and they were kind of sandwiched in the middle. Both of these groups were opposed to this new Christian community. So Matthew is not just recording the deeds and actions of Jesus for one group of people. Matthew is writing for three groups, and two of those groups are hostile towards him and the new community. For this reason, it should be noted that Matthew has an axe to grind. He wants both the Romans and the Jewish establishment to know Jesus is the Messiah, Jesus is the true Son of God, and Jesus is coming soon. So Matthew wants them to know that if they don't get it, if they aren't prepared, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew is angry. He's the guy at the Thanksgiving table that puts hot sauce on everything. Oh, he's hot. He is hot. He is all out of patience. He is all out of time for those who continue to waver and doubt whether Jesus is the Messiah. So as we look at our text, we must be careful not to forget that Matthew's anger has some influence in his retelling of this parable. Basically, Matthew's anger is the primary character in this parable, which is the reason why when we hear it and read it, something about it doesn't jive. This parable has been making folks uncomfortable and ill at ease for a long, long time. We have to be mindful that if we don't allow ourselves to be pulled into the conflict before we sufficiently iron out some of Matthew's anger issues. So let's iron them out real quick. Don't look at your neighbor, just look right here. No finger pointing, just look right here. First, can we all acknowledge that sometimes when under pressure, we say things out of anger? Check. Can we all acknowledge that sometimes that the things we say out of anger are not always true? Check. Can we all agree that sometimes when under pressure, we say things out of anger that are not true and don't have anything to do with the topic being discussed? Example, you're at work talking about workflow and someone says, "You put too much sage in the dressing." You're like, "I thought we were talking about workflow, dude. What's the..." Sometimes when angry, we say things we don't mean. We say things that have nothing to do with anything. And sometimes we just make stuff up because we're angry. In looking at the verses of Matthew, keep that in mind. Matthew is under a lot of pressure. He is feeling the pressure of what it feels like to be in a society that doesn't really want you. Once we've acknowledged and identified Matthew's anger, our perspective has to change. On the surface, this text could be solely about failure to prepare. It could be solely about money. On the surface, this text could be solely about fear. But when we read the words of the third worker without Matthew's projection, fear, laziness don't reflect the real issue. So let's look at the words again. Verses 24 and 25. "Boss, I know you have high standards and hate careless ways, that you demand the best and make no allowances for error. I was afraid I might disappoint you. So I found a good hiding place and secured your money. Here it is, safe and sound, down to the last cent. I didn't make a mistake. The third worker said, boss, I was afraid I might disappoint you because I know you are a harsh man who doesn't like it when people make mistakes. Does that sound like a work ethic problem? Does that sound like a person who's fearful without cause? Does that sound like a money problem? I was afraid I might disappoint you because I know you are a harsh man who does not like people who make mistakes. Is that a work problem? Is that a money problem? The reason the text makes us so uncomfortable is because the mistakes the third worker made are mistakes that we've all made. When we allow ourselves to freely empathize with the third worker, we can see the third worker in a different light. He was given a responsibility that he did not ask for. Been there? From a person who not only did not believe in him, but that person was harsh and cruel and demanded perfection. We're seeing him a little bit clearly now. The third worker's back was against the wall. There was no good solution. Either way, his life and livelihood were in jeopardy. Seeing him a little bit differently now. For him, the situation seemed hopeless. Hopelessness. That fits more than fear, more than greed, more than laziness, hopelessness. With this shift, the third worker's words are more clear. You can almost hear him say, I did not want to disappoint you, Mom. I did not believe I could do it, Dad. You can almost hear him say, I did not want to fail you again, boss. The third worker said, I was afraid that I would fail. I was afraid that I would disappoint you. So I took your your coins, and I buried them. I was afraid that I would not measure up to your standards. So I took your love, your coins, and I buried them. If we're honest with ourselves, we've all been guilty of burying the wrong things. In reading our text now, you can almost hear the shovel digging a hole in the ground. You can almost hear self-worth being buried. You're never going to amount to anything. You can almost hear self-esteem being buried. You're ugly. You're too old. You're too stupid. You can almost hear self-acceptance being buried. If you would have just been born with. The problem in the world is that we've been burying the wrong things. The problem in the world is not fear, it's not laziness, it's not greed. The problem in the world is hopelessness. We all know someone who's found themselves without hope. Maybe it's you, maybe it's me. Hopelessness. Hopelessness is that feeling you get when your back is up against the wall and you can't seem to find your way out. Hopelessness is what we feel when the world tells us over and over, things are not going to get better. Things are not going to get better. If you hear something long enough, you heard the saying, if you hear it long enough, eventually you're going to start to believe it. Believe it. We live in a world where folks have been driven to hopelessness. They have taken their God-given gifts and buried them. They're taking forgiveness and buried it. They've taken kindness and buried it. They've taken just genuine compassion and empathy for neighbor, and they've buried it. The problem in the world is not fear, laziness, lack of preparation. The problem in the world is hopelessness, a world drained of hope. A world void of any holy expectation. No wonder we become a society swimming in alternative facts, where inclusiveness is a four-letter word. Access to health care is a fairy tale. Affordable college is a unicorn, a baby unicorn. Come on. We are a world struggling with hopelessness. But oh wait, if we have to look at the third worker differently, then we have to look at the other characters differently too. And I'm here to tell you, God offers hope. When we rid ourselves of Matthew's anger, let's look at the other two workers. They knew what the boss was like. They knew the deck was stacked against them. Did you notice the boss left no instructions? Did you notice the boss left them with no time frame, no guidelines? All they knew was that the boss was a harsh man with high standards. All they knew was that the boss made no allowances for error. All they knew was that the short-tempered, money-hungry boss was going on a long journey. And yet, watch me, they took a risk. They persisted. They had faith. They had hope. We can now recognize and rejoice in the hope of the first two workers. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. You see, faith is not the absence of fear or brokenness, but faith is a substance of hope in the presence of fear. Okay, we're going to make it really real. We're all friends here, right? Take your finger. Let me see your finger. Everybody got one? Everybody has a finger? We're all friends. We're family. I love you. Take your finger, put it behind your ear, and go from the top of your ear to the bottom of your ear. Look straight ahead. Now look at your finger. That's a substance. Faith is that small. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. Look at your finger. Can you see it? How much faith do you have to change a situation as small as what you can see on your finger? Faith is a substance. It's a substance of things hoped for. I wish we had just a few people who just come to the Thanksgiving table with just a substance of hope so y'all don't kill each other. I'm kidding. I'm projecting onto you. I know your Thanksgiving time is fine. You get what I'm saying. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. It is the evidence of things not seen. Paul wrote it this way. He said, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. That's hope. We are perplexed, but not in despair. That's hope. Persecuted, but not forsaken. That's hope. Cast down, but not destroyed. That's hope. Always bearing about in the body the hope and the promise. All it takes is a substance of hope to change. When we look at our text, we can see the two workers who held on to hope in the face of fear. They held on to hope in the face of opposition. They held on to hope in the face of uncertainty. And when the boss returned, he found them full of hope and full of expectation. Their hope was so contagious, their expectation so infectious that they now overshadow the boss. Their hope and their faith make them the heroes of the text. Like them, church, FCC, Disciples of Christ, we are the heroes of our community. We are the hope in a hopeless world. We are the voice that speaks hope when other folks are feeling hopeless. Our hope should be contagious. We are people full of expectation. When our neighbors have lost all expectation and they no longer believe in ourselves, when our brothers and sisters begin to doubt their value, their self-worth, our voices should rise up. God has a plan. Our voices should rise up and say, God has a plan for you, brother. God has a plan for you, sister. It's a plan of good. It's a plan to prosper you. It's a plan of hope. We are the voice of expectation. We bring our expectation to the church and out into the world. We bring our expectation to the courthouse and to the schoolhouse. We bring our expectation into the prayer closet and the voting booth. When compassion has been buried, we talk about resurrection. When kindness has been buried, we preach about resurrection. Where forgiveness has been buried, we talk about and sing about and preach about resurrection. We are a people who know something about resurrection. Good job, Soniyyah. Amen, Soniyyah. Way to go. We are people who know something about resurrection. I'll say it over here. We are people who know something about resurrection. I'll say it out there. We are people who know something about resurrection. You say it too. We are people. We are people who know something about it. Ain't nobody going to take that narrative, that part of the story away from us. We talk, we preach, we believe in resurrection. So where there is hopelessness, we talk about it. We sing about it. We show up to Thanksgiving table with a turkey and hope. Good job, Soniyyah. Way to go. We know something about resurrection. Lord, let our hope be contagious. And let our expectation be infectious. Amen.